Welcome to World Transits Today. I'm Art Granoff. Connect with me at referenceastrology.com. And today I'm going to show the March 2025 World Transits in archetypal astrology. Let's start with Stan Grof's map of the psyche. We begin with ordinary ego consciousness, personal unconscious, and as we slide down the hourglass, we may take some psychedelics or do some breath work, some other powerful method to open up our psyche. We may regress to the perinatal matrices around birth. And we may go further into the transpersonal unconscious, to the archetypal dimension. Here stands 4 basic perinatal matrices, which are outlining the birth process. And he says, BPM1, the amniotic universe. Everything seems to be okay. BPM2, the cosmic oppression. Everything is not okay. BPM3, lots of intensity, the struggle, death rebirth struggle. And BPM4, the death rebirth experience. In the mid-70s, Richard Tarnas came along with some astrology, and he discovered that the 4 outer planets in astrology matched the same phenomenology as the 4 basic perinatal matrices. And here they are. BPM1, the amniotic universe. Everything's kind of mellow, flowing. And in astrology, that refers to Neptune, no boundaries, undifferentiated consciousness, mystical union. And then the second matrix, stuck in the birth canal, the cosmic oppression, frustration, limit, Saturn. The third matrix, BPM3, the struggle, the death rebirth struggle, the intensity, trying to get out of there, Pluto. And then 4, pop, victory, we made it, the death rebirth experience, Uranus. And today, I'm going to start out showing 2 of the major outer planet alignments that are happening right now. One is Uranus trine Pluto from 2022 over there to 2032. That's a long transit. And Saturn conjunct Neptune, which is in the gray right there, from 2024 to 2027. We notice Neptune, Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto. We notice in the perinatal matrices, Neptune, Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto. So it looks like all the 4 perinatal matrices, outer planets, are in alignment right now in these 2 pairs. What's this about? Let's find out. Again, here's Uranus trine Pluto, 2022, 2032. Uranus is about awakening and breakthroughs, and Pluto is about power, depth, and rebirth. So when they get together, they symbolize revolutionary transformation, radical change. And as I say, freedom with intensity. Some of their main characteristics: rapid technology, cultural revolution, scientific breakthroughs. And Uranus and Pluto tends to parallel intensive drives for freedom, awakening power dynamics, and cultural revolution. Some of the periods we could highlight are the 1960s with the civil rights movement, anti-war protests, and the sexual revolution. We had the French Revolution in the late 1700s, radical political transformation, the Declaration of the Rights of Man. We had the 1850s, say over in Europe, with all of the revolutions, all those countries and revolutions, and the Industrial Revolution. We just had from 27 to 2020 the square, Uranus-Pluto square, and we got social media, the iPhone, and now 2022 to 2032, Uranus trine Pluto. Trump returns as president, announces he's king. We have change, intensity, and chaos, hastening the U.S. Revolution 2.0. Just to show you different periods, Uranus and Pluto. Just talking about the 1960s, okay, right here, 1960s, Uranus conjunct Pluto for 12 years. And we notice at different time periods, we've got different Uranus-Plutos. We've got an opposition, years later, a trine, sextile, etc. Let's look at a couple of people that we know that have Uranus and Pluto aspects in their chart. You know these guys, right? Albert Hofmann and Stanislav Grof. Two characters, eh? We notice, just as an example, in Albert's chart, he has Uranus over there, say, opposite to Pluto. See, Uranus opposite to Pluto. There, Uranus opposite to Pluto. And Albert is born in 1906. If we look at Stan's chart, we look and see that Stan has a Uranus and Pluto square. Okay, Uranus square Pluto, and he's born in 1931. So if we look back at the chart, this chart, we notice when Albert's born, it's 1906, it's Uranus opposite Pluto. And then when Stan's born, it's 1931, which is Uranus square Pluto. And we have the 1960s, Uranus conjunct Pluto. Both Albert and Stan have Uranus and Pluto in their chart. We're talking about revolutionary transformation, radical change, collective awakening, freedom with intensity. Now, if we were to select one person that could be the poster boy for all of the 60s of every other person we could think of, well, that I could think of, I'd come up with only one person, one guy, and his name starts with Jimi and it ends with Hendrix, Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix, born in 1942, November 1942, with a Uranus sextile Pluto. So Uranus and Pluto together, okay? Uranus sextile Pluto. We notice also in Jimi Hendrix's chart, he's got Uranus with Neptune, he's got Saturn with Neptune, and he's got Neptune with Pluto. He's got all the four outer planets together in his chart. He's a pretty cosmic guy. And when he started playing the guitar, it was like no one else. He is essentially the Beethoven of our time, who took music and renovated it, changed it all around. Jimi Hendrix, Uranus and Pluto. The counterpart of Jimi Hendrix, we have Janis Joplin. Okay, great singer, Janis Joplin. She's born a couple of months after him in January 1943. So she's also got that Uranus and Pluto sextile right there. Okay, Uranus and Pluto. And also, because they're born so similar, so close together, that she too has Uranus trine Pluto, Saturn with Pluto. And you notice all the four outer planets are together right there in Janis Joplin's case. So if we look back, here we've got Albert, born in 1906, Uranus and Pluto. We've got Stan, born in 1931, Uranus and Pluto. We've got Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, born in 1943, in the sextile. Okay, we'll keep going. Me, I see the Grateful Dead the first time on September 18th, 1970. I'm 17 years old. In the sky that day is a Uranus, same Uranus and Pluto conjunction from the 60s, because it's 70. Alrighty. And also a Saturn opposite Neptune. I'm going to dive into Saturn Neptune in just a short while. One other event for me in 1972, about a year and a half later, I'm having my 19th birthday in India, and I take LSD at the Taj Mahal. Yes, it was a fun day. Show you. 1972, the alignment was ending. You see here, we got about 16 degrees. Usually we go for 15. But after they've been together for 12 years, I'm going to give them an extra degree. So Uranus sextile, Uranus conjunct Pluto there. One more we've also got at the moment, right now. Remember I mentioned the Uranus trine Pluto right there. And for the month of March, right there, we notice we've got Mars sextile Uranus. This is a transit that's gone on since October through May. Okay, Mars is force, action, it's your will, strong will. With Uranus, the new thing, freedom. One motif could be find something that you're excited about and go do it. Mars Uranus. In addition to that, we've got Mars with Pluto. Mars with Pluto. Mars is force, and Pluto is intensity. When they get together, it could be trouble. Mars forcing an issue, and Pluto's all excited. Oh, yeah, let's intensify this a lot. And so usually we get sparks, we get fighting, we get that type of action, rough stuff. Look at the world today. It's a little rough. Okay. So Mars, Uranus, Pluto. Mars, Pluto also. Mars is very tenacious, allows us to do the toughest work, going beyond yourself, excelling in through mid-April. On the 14th of the month, we've got the full moon, the sun opposite the moon. Now, what's the full moon? Every culture has stories around it. All people either worship it or don't. The full moon, the way I see it, is that since time began, and even before that, people were looking up at the moon and saying, wow, or they were shaking in fear, whichever the case may be. Now, this full moon in March 14th of this year, watch what happens when we add the planet Saturn. Okay, so it's a full moon with Saturn. And if we add Neptune, it's a full moon with Neptune. So this full moon is Saturn Neptune. Something ideal or something real. Saturn is bottom line. It's the material world. It's what we deal with day to day. And Neptune is our imagination. It's flow. So Saturn with Neptune can be tough, can be restricting your imagination, can limit what you're trying to do. Or on the other hand, the noble side, the super side of Saturn Neptune would be taking what's ideal and building it out here, building dreams. So I'm going to recommend on this full moon, on the 14th, think about what is going on? What am I thinking about in my imagination? What's happening there? And how can I build that? How can I bring it here so we can enjoy it? Then, okay, in addition to that, watch this. If we add Uranus, I add Pluto, it shows me on the full moon, the 14th, the sun is with most of the outer planets. The moon is with all of the outer planets. We notice there. Moon with Uranus, moon with Neptune, moon with Pluto. Okay, moon Uranus would be freedom of emotions. Moon with Neptune, generosity or too much generosity. And moon with Pluto, the depth of emotion, catharsis, or too much of that and a lot of emotional intensity. Let's look at The inner planets dancing through the Saturn and Neptune conjunction. We start the planet Jupiter. For all of March, right there, that's our main area we're looking at. So for all of March, it's Jupiter with Saturn and Neptune. Jupiter with Saturn. Jupiter expands, provides good fortune and success. To Saturn could be something you're building, something you're making, or Jupiter can expand and Saturn can restrict. So they could be opposites. It could be like the end of the line in a big time for you. Or Jupiter with Neptune. Jupiter expands and Neptune would be your imagination. It could be a flow. So Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, either tough stuff or expanding, building on your dreams. We've got Mars, Saturn, Neptune. Hey, Mars with Saturn going on there from beginning of the, well, I think it starts earlier. Let's see. Yeah. In September through May, that's a long Mars transit. Mars with Saturn. Mars is force and Saturn is resistance. So Mars hitting resistance. Eventually, you can get some sparks, get some action. A wall could fall down. Force meets resistance. And Mars trine Neptune from October through mid-May. Mars force, and you could say Neptune is wholeness or Mars is moving. So let's use moving towards wholeness, holotropic. For Venus, we notice in the month of March, we've got Venus with Saturn and Venus with Neptune. Many motifs around these guys. Venus with Saturn could be one motif, would be the old couple, the older couple anyway. I guess I'd be in that. Standing around in the kitchen, stirring the oatmeal together. They're happy, they worked it out, things are okay. Or we could have Venus with Saturn. Saturn can restrict love. Okay, so it could be there could be tensions in a love situation. Also, Venus is beauty, Aphrodite, expression of art. With Saturn, could be the motif for the artist, is getting something worked up and putting it down on paper, on clay, on you name it, however you're doing it. Artist motif. Also, with Venus and Neptune, a couple of motifs around that. On the softer side, inner side, Venus, the human heart, with Neptune, the divine heart, known as bhakti in Hindi, the Hindi word for love of teacher, love of guru. Venus, Saturn, Neptune. Building dreams with your heart, putting your heart into it. We've got Mercury, the planet Mercury. Mercury refers to the mind and communication, our style, thinking, learning, speaking, writing. We've got in the month of March, Mercury conjunct Saturn. Mercury is your mind. Saturn would be a track. It would be diving into something with your mind, some intellectual activity and staying with it. Perhaps when we're younger, at home, they gave us religion, which was a track, put our mind into. Some like it, some don't. Go with that. Mercury, Saturn, or later in life, you can select the track you want to put your mind on, okay? Go for that. Mercury with Neptune. Hey, if Mercury, Saturn is about practical things, Mercury, Neptune is about our imagination and what we can dream up and dreaming. So if Mercury with Saturn profession could be doctor, lawyer, or accountant, Mercury with Neptune could be an actor, a musician, a playwright, using our imagination, thinking about music, writing music, enjoying music. Mercury, Saturn, Neptune, using our mind to build dreams. And the sun. We notice right here in March, Sun, Saturn, and Sun, Neptune. Sun, Saturn, identifying with form and structure. Father, someone who takes care of us, who takes care of others. Sun with Neptune, imagination, flow, easygoing. Sun, Saturn with Neptune. Or also with Sun with Neptune could be someone that's spaced out, who's deluded, can't get it together. And Sun with Saturn, the same, someone who's restricted. So it could be someone that's blocked in both ways, in both departments, or it could be someone who's building dreams. Dreams, Neptune, Saturn, building. So all this month, we've got Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, all with Saturn and Neptune. What a great month. Saturn, Neptune. Saturn structure, boundaries. Neptune's what's ideal or confusion. You can read these another time. Some Saturn and Neptune people I got from my database. Either those that are really spaced out or those that have imagined something and built it in the world. And some of these guys you know? Abraham Lincoln, Miles Davis, Allen Ginsberg, the Dalai Lama, 1935, Mary Oliver, 1935, Ken Kesey, Ralph Metzner, that was a big one. Then in the 40s, we had Roger Waters, Joni Mitchell, and Mick Jagger. We go further. 53, Alex Gray, Lucinda Williams, me, Art Granoff, Grace Manning, and so on. Now here's something really interesting. It's another way to look at the 4 BPMs that we started with, okay? See here in this diagram, there's the Uranus trine Pluto transit right there. There's the Saturn conjunct Neptune transit right there. Remember that? Now we've got these other ones here, all in the middle. We've got Saturn, sextile Pluto, Saturn, Uranus, Uranus, Neptune, and Uranus, Neptune, and Neptune, Pluto. When we take a look over here at this horoscope, we notice something really interesting. Now watch this. Here's the 4 outer planets, all in alignment right now. There's the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, and there's Uranus trine Pluto. Now we notice here, if we look further, that Saturn's at 20 degrees and Neptune's at 28. Watch what happens. Watch how tight they get in the next few months. The next month, April 1st, they're 4 degrees apart. May 1st, they're just a few degrees apart. June, they're 1 degree apart right there. In July, still 1 degree apart. And look how close these are. Then in August is the peak. Watch this. Right at their peak in August, Saturn and Neptune are perfectly exact, 1 degree, 1 degree. And Uranus and Pluto are just 2 degrees apart. So Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, and Pluto all together, the 4 outer planets, really tight. And that keeps going through the end of the year. I'd say it's a really great time to go deep inside yourself. Do your inner work, do your meditations, do your journeys. This is a great time to go deep. On the 20th of the month, right here, it's spring. Spring begins. The sun is in Aries, 0 degrees. And you notice that this day of spring, we've got the sun with Saturn and Neptune and Venus, Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter, just like I showed you before. Happy spring, everybody. And of course, let's look at Donald Trump's transits. He's part of life now, whether you love him or don't love him, whatever. I'm thinking of him as an archetypal guy. I'm thinking of him. I can learn more about the archetypes and archetypal pairs by observing Donald Trump in action, looking at his chart, and looking at his transits. So, with that intro, let's discuss some of Donald Trump's transits. Here we go. Let's start with the planet. Where are we here? Let's start with the planet Saturn right there. Okay, Saturn. He's got a Saturn, trine Saturn right there. Saturn, trine Saturn. Saturn restricts, Saturn limits. So Saturn on Saturn is usually tough stuff. He's probably frustrated in a lot of ways. He can't get everything he wants. And we're going to be feeling that for the next few months. Saturn with Saturn. He's also got, speaking of Saturn, he's got Saturn right there in a square with Uranus and Saturn with a sun. So Saturn Uranus is usually old versus new. And he's a really old versus new kind of guy. I mean, make America great again. How old can you get? How retro can you get? Let's go back where everything was great. It's Saturn and Uranus. In addition to that, he's also got a Uranus right there, Uranus, square to Saturn. And you notice they're exact, 23 and 23. So that tells me he's been in that for about a year and a half, and he's got about a year and a half to go. Old versus new. So he's got it two ways, old versus new and new versus old. He is quite a flashpoint. He's an archetypal guy. We can look at the planet Jupiter right there. Jupiter expands, provides success and good fortune. On Pluto, okay, which is Hades, which is intensity. So it's safe to say that this transit will last a few more months. Jupiter on Pluto, more intensity, bigger intensity. We've got the planet Mars right there. Okay, 17. You notice it's in a square to the planet Jupiter. Mars again is force and your will. Jupiter expands that. He's doing that big time. And if you notice, with Mars at 17 and Saturn at 23, probably next month or in a couple of weeks, he's going to have a Mars on top of Saturn transit as well. Okay, so that's going to be force and equal force meets resistance. So that's going to be tough for him. I want to say that Donald Trump has some very intense transits, very polarizing and strong transits. 29th of the month is the new moon, sun conjunct moon, the alpha and the omega. It's the beginning of the cycle, the moon cycle, and the end, meeting up again with the sun, all together. Our outward personality and our inward personality meet again. So thanks for joining me, everybody, at World Transits today, going through the March 2025 World Transits, and especially two large outer planet transits, Uranus with Pluto and Saturn with Neptune.